this video, it's a layout of 10 things you can do or put into practice with your own productions to make them sound better, or at least to put you on the right track for getting the sound that you want. They're in no priority order, but they are time-stamped in the description below. If you want to skip to one that you're more interested in, feel free to do that. Please feel free to subscribe, especially if you're a singer-songwriter or producer, because that's what this channel is all about. Number one is copy other producers. It doesn't sound like you don't just want to go and look at the awesome Timbaland song or next Justin Bieber hit and go and just rip the song. However, you can rip certain elements of the song and then change them a bit. And everyone does this. But because everyone does this, there are so many songs that sound the same. Here's the thing about huge popular artists. They're all doing something different. And then everyone goes and copies them blatantly and directly and then just makes the same song. You can go and take inspiration from that, but then you gotta make something different. You gotta make something unique that's unique to you. If you just have a reference song and you just make that, and then it sounds like any other artist, then you are that other artist. They've done it already. So you're asking yourself now, how do I make it unique, Charles? What do I do? Use weird sounds. Go and find the weird stuff. And that's just cool because you might be the first person to make that sound or to do that thing and to find that. And then you might be known for that. Who knows? But if you're just going to go to Splice and rip all the famous kicks or just do the same thing that all the pop songs are doing, then you're going to sound the same. Number one, copy other artists to find inspiration and then put your own twist on it to make it unique to you. Number two, set a strong foundation. Find the thing that you are excited by, that you're like, yeah, that sounds cool, and then pile up on top of that. This is a slippery slope though, and there's a fine edge. You want to find that thing you're excited about, right? To build on top of, whether that's a sweet piano loop, a guitar lick, a lyric, a beat, a snare sound, it doesn't matter. You don't want to be just sitting in front of your DAW all day and being like, oh, I never was excited by anything, so I just didn't write a song today. If you're not finding something that's making you pumped up after like 10-20 minutes, that should be a sign where it's like, okay, go get a coffee, get up from your desk, listen to some music, go for a walk. If you're just going to be like scrolling through sounds like this after hours and hours, it's likely your mood. So change your mood and then get back into it with energy and with excitement. So that's number two, set a strong foundation. Number three is when you're starting to build these sounds and you have a mood, you're getting excited by it, think about the kind of long-term arrangement of the song. Especially, is there going to be a vocal in the song? Or if there isn't going to be a vocal, all right, how are you going to lay it out? For simplicity purposes, let's just say this is your loop you're really excited about, right? Okay, well, if that's your main loop, well, is it going to start on the verse here? How long is or intro, how long is that going to be? And then make the structure at the top here. In Logic, it's super easy. I usually have a structure going so you can map it out of where you're going. And is it going to, is it going to be this long? Are you going to have a chorus, a 16-bar chorus or an 8-bar chorus? You can have a post-chorus. And oftentimes I build the chorus out first, because that's usually, the main event of the song. I mentioned the vocal as well because this is super important. If you are producing a song or writing a beat to get a groove going to write on, then don't be like too upset if it sounds empty. If there's going to be a vocal on there, that's going to really fill it out, especially with background vocals and harmonies and this kind of thing. Number four is now you're getting a lot of sounds in your production. Make sure none of your sounds are fighting for space. You can EQ your way out of some things to have space for things, but it should start at the production phase too. Like if you're gonna have a bass drum, well, you don't need another like huge bass synth and another hugely bass piano, From a production perspective, think about the sounds and the frequencies of the sounds. Here are our sounds. This is the full spectrum of the sounds. The bass is over here in this kind of area. We have, pianos and synths and vocals in this area. And then we have a lot of air and high frequency hi-hats and snares can get in there and high vocals. And so if I have kick drum and bass, I know, and synths, I know low synths, I know this area is covered. Okay, I'm gonna have a vocal, I know it's gonna be in here. I'm gonna have more synths and pianos and guitars, they're gonna fit in here too. I'm gonna have some BVs that are gonna really fill out the highs and some hi-hats and maybe some fluttery bells or synths. That's how I'm thinking about things. You can pull up a multimeter and play like whatever you have going in the production, and that's going to show you where all your frequencies are. And you might be like, wow, we have no low end. Well, probably put a bass in your song or a kick drum or something. Or we have no mids, highs. Well, do you have a vocal in there yet? If not, maybe that's what's missing. Of course, there's going to be overlap. It's impossible to have a song without overlap. That's where EQ comes in, and that's where you can carve out spaces. You should be kind of like mixing and producing at the same time so you can get a bit of a vibe going. What I mean by this is like, if you do have, use panning, like put things off to the side while you're producing, that doesn't take long. Just go like this, put that guitar off to the side. And then if you have your buses set up, it's super easy. Just go put a bus on, and then here's a big verb. Okay, I'm gonna bust out some big verb. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna bust out a quarter delay on this guitar. And then here we go. Wow, that is a seriously terrible loop as an example. Maybe you go and you EQ the guitar, like take a lot of the low end out because you don't want the low end of the guitar because you're gonna put a bass drum in next. I'm not talking about EQing like, all right, let's listen and like, I really don't like that frequency, like let's take this out, and ooh, we need more of that frequency. Not talking about that type of EQing. If you add without doing any EQing, reverb, chorus effects, panning, this type of things, then everything is just going to be in the middle. Everything is going to be the same volume, and it's just going to sound like a brick wall. Number 5 is creating color and flavor in your songs. I know that sounds so lush. Okay, so what the heck does that mean? A lot of the songs you're going to have chord progressions, right? Sometimes they're the same thing throughout the whole song. That's fine. What you can do is change the color, change the flavor of the chord progression throughout the song, so at least it's a bit different and fresh for the listener. Here's an example. Let's put down a chord progression here. Something simple in C major. Okay, super basic, right? Let's just quickly make these the same length. So Command A, actually we'll quantize this at a whole note, and then Shift Option, holding all of them, making them the same length. So this is your super basic, right? Let's say you're gonna make a song around this. So you have 4 different regions, and you're gonna maybe loop that throughout the whole song. So that's gonna get boring quickly. So add more flavor, add more color. One way to do that, a quick way, open up one region, let's say the second one here, just add different velocity. Highlight these ones, or this whole little stack here, and change the velocity. Go down here, change it. I like to change velocity quickly by highlighting, and then I right click and pull down or pull up. I can do that because I have a right click tool here, and you can change that in settings if you want. We're gonna change the shape of these chords by doing inversions. In order to do inversions, all you need to do is take any note here and then move it up an octave. And that's it. That's a quick and easy way to do it without getting into any details. So take the bottom one, move it up an octave or down, but we're going to move it up in this case. Shift Option up arrow. Take this one, Shift Option up. Take this one, Shift Option up, and this one. What happened there? There we go. So now we have 2 different regions, but the same chords. Have a listen. Different, right? Completely different. Also a bit higher. Different flavor. One way you can take it further that's still fairly straightforward is adding 7th notes or sus notes. Let's stick with 7s in this video. Super easy way to do this, to add these 7s or any other notes, making up chords basically on the spot without any theory at all. Open up the region and choose your scale. So you have to go here, whether it's like minor or major. We're in major and we're in C. So, go and choose C. Then if you have a paintbrush tool on, Logic will only let you choose the notes with the paintbrush that are in the scale. So you can see here, I'm just gonna zoom in. So I'm going to paint this note here. I'm going to paint this note in. But you see this one? It won't let me choose that note. I'm like, I want that note. It's like, no, that note is not in the scale, so we're not going to let you choose that note. Great. So now I know that every note I choose is going to be in the scale. Let's see what that sounds like. that sounds super bad, but you know, you can test things out. It's not like, oh, everything's going to sound amazing, but you at least know every note is actually in the scale. Some are going to sound a little too dissonant and it's not going to work. In order to create a seventh, if you don't know any theory, what I would recommend is going to Google and then looking at the notes. So we have G, B, D, which make up the chord, and we already have this note. Where's our G chord here if we look in this area? Right here. So this is G, B, D. Okay, so we need this F sharp. Let's go over here now and let's add this F sharp. It's right here. So now we have an F major 7, which is, sorry, G major 7. This is G major, G major 7. See, it's nice, right? And that's going to inspire different melodies because you're hearing different things in the chord progression. So go through your chord progressions and change it up with using the inversions and adding sevenths here and there where you can. Number 6 is make your own sounds. Play guitar, play piano, sing. And if you can't do any of that, that's okay. Get a shaker, an egg shaker. It's like $1, and get your shake on. Record your snaps, record some claps. Here's a tip if you can't do any of that, which everyone can do this. Everyone can sing. I know some people think they can't sing. Try this with your productions. When you have a groove going, get an audio track up, put some auto-tune on there if you feel more comfortable. Put some reverb on there. Put the input monitoring on and get in the vibe and start singing some things. You know, blabber words, whatever, humming, doing that. And then you might find that you got a little cool thing you can turn into like a chop. So the effects I would add, pitch correction, I would add like a pitch shifter. So you can like change the pitch of your voice and change the format. So actually it's this one that you can change the format. Yeah, this vocal transformer. This is a stock in Logic. The format will change the texture of your voice. It won't change the pitch. Number 7 is automation. If you haven't been using automation, you really need to start. 2 simple examples. One is you can automate the volume. So I'm just opening up A, and I have a yellow line here now. This is the volume. I can automate the volume. Maybe in the pre here, I want it to be a bit quieter. So now the piano is 3 decibels quieter, and on the, let's say in the chorus here, now it's back up to 0. Another example, if we just go right click, delete that, is adding a filter. So we can open up a Logic EQ. I'm just going to turn on the high cut filter here. I'm going to go to the drop down and go to a high cut frequency. This is going to have a blue line, and now I can automate the filter of the piano. So right here, if I drop it down here, and let me open up the EQ so you can understand. So you can see here, watch when I move my cursor to the right. The filter's opening up, right? And that's what I drew in here. So let's hear it from here. It's coming out of the water. You can bring up an automation curve tool here. You can draw like a curve like that. It's just under the tool menu. And I just pressed Command and I'm dragging it. Number 8 is editing. Editing is super important. It's kind of coming back to this between mixing and production stage. Let's give an example of if you have a vocal part, you're working on a vocal melody. You really should spend some time on like getting that vocal locked in time. And a way to do that is you have to edit that. So like if this was a vocal here, let's bring in a vocal. This is your little vocal melody. Fade some things so there's no pops. You're gonna wanna have some things, if this is all like static, you wanna cut that out and delete it and then fade that in. Usually when you sing a vocal, you might not be in time all the time. So you have to, let's say if this part here, actually, was supposed to be sung here. Move it over, crossfade these in, edit it up, get things locked in. A couple tips to that, if you're in Logic, I always like to have the fader in my command tool or the marquee. And then in my right tool, I have the scissors most of the time or the fader. I'm constantly going back marquee, scissors, fader tools. That's because I'm fading things, like if fader was here, I'm usually going like command and like fading things and then adjusting the fade. like that. Or I'm doing right click and cutting things and then moving it and fading like that. The marquee is kind of like scissors. It's helpful when you're doing bulk editing of vocals and stuff like this. So an example is like, I can press Command, have a marquee up, and then it's like, I don't want this section. Just delete it. And then I can, fade these in or bring these over. Whatever way you decide to use the tools, use the tools. Don't just use one pointer and then bring everything over and then do like Command T. Wow, that sounds terrible. Use the tools. Number 9 is don't lose momentum. Momentum can be everything when you're producing. You've probably found times where you're just like, I can't go on, there's too many speed bumps and I'm hitting too many walls. Fine line here. You're gonna hit walls. So you're gonna want to, like, if you haven't found something that you're excited by yet, or you're working on a piano part or guitar part or vocal, you gotta work through it a bit. But if you're really hitting a wall and you're like, oh, I can't think of a lyric idea, or I can't get a melody going, you got to switch things up. So that's, again, getting a coffee, going for a walk, or just working on something else. You can say to yourself, you know what, I think I'll be just wasting time doing those things, and I'm just going to stick with it. I'm going to try to get a melody and work through it. And you can spend hours and hours trying to find a melody or finding that right sound. And it can be 3-4 hours. Or you can switch it up for 5 minutes, work on something else, come back to it, try again, maybe it doesn't work, and then just move on to something else completely, work on something else. So you're using those 3-4 hours productively, then come back and find that melody or find that sound. And it will take you less time because you're coming at it with a different mindset, or a different fresh perspective. So let's say you have a software instrument you're working on. Okay, let's say it's the keys here for our perspective. One thing you can actually do is bounce this. And that's going to change that and take the sound and put it into audio, but you're not going to be able to change the piano sound anymore. For example, this is a contact piano. We can go into the contact, change the sound of the piano, change the tone, but no, we're going to say we want this and we're going to move on with it. So let's go File, Export one track as audio file, or sorry, bounce. What am I saying? File, bounce, track in place. We're going to replace the track. We are going to bypass the effect plugins and overload production only. Bounce that through. Now we have our little piano part, and our other one's gone. And you can see here in the input, we can't go to our piano track anymore. We still can go and add EQ and reverb and all that stuff, but we can't change the sound. I do this a lot because you're committing to something and you're moving on. So you can't go back and be like, oh, I want to change the piano sound a little bit. No, you're moving on. And 2, it's actually really good for your computer because your computer is not going to have to run that software instrument more. This is just an audio track. Number 10 is continue to find inspiration. If you're producing like multiple tracks a week, you might be like really dry in the inspiration tank or the creativity tank. What I do is I like to listen to old songs, actually, old hits. Like go to Wikipedia or Google and then search like #1 hits in the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. I think that's a radio station. In those hits in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there's not a lot going on. Queen, Everyone Bites the Dust. Toto, Africa. Memorable moments of certain elements that you can get inspired by, and you're like, yeah, I don't need tons of instruments anymore in my tracks. I just got to find the right ones and make them really solid. And that's what's going to get you to a worldwide hit. Finding those grooves that are just made up of only a small amount of instrumentation, but are memorable, are groovy, they're in the pocket, they make people move, they make people excited. What other production tips do you guys have for us? Please let them know in the comments. Let's share and try to make other people better. Share your music in the comments if you want. That's the doorbell.